I think I've read that watching Pedro Almodóvar's Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down was kind of a big cinematic experience for you when you were 14 years old, and it kind of changed the way that you saw cinema and when you had a desire, even at that age, to work with him.
Yes, even from before, from Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, What Have I Done to Deserve This, I thought he was a total genius, and my dream was just to meet him, to be able to say thank you for everything he gave me. But then I started to dream bigger, and I thought, like, when I started to work, like, wouldn't it be great if one day I get to work with him? I knew we would get along. I don't know why I knew. And then something very strange happened. If I would think about him in the street in Madrid, I would find him. And of course, I didn't tell him this until years later. The first few times he looked at me like, okay, if you say so. But then he realized that things like that happen between him and I, or if he's thinking about me, then the phone rings and it's me, or the other way around. Like now after 30 years, now he believes me. But we have like this supernatural connection that, I don't know, it's been like a magical friendship. It's much more than a director I work with. It's somebody that I adore and that has taught me so much. And I feel like the luckiest person to have been in 7 of his films, and I hope many more. And it's a great adventure to be with him on the set and to have him in my life. You know, even a lunch or a dinner with him, you never know what he's going to say next. It's full of surprises, and he's so honest, like brutally honest if you're his friend.
And somehow, kind of, when you were following him around those streets, but he managed to find your number, telephone number in 1997 and gave you a call.
Yeah, and then I didn't react because I was drying my hair and somebody said, Almodóvar is on the phone. And I was, typical joke that is not funny because they know how obsessed I am. And I kept drying my hair. He said, Almodóvar is on the phone. And after 3 or 4 times, then I went, I was like this. I was terrified. When I heard his voice on the other line, it was like such a particular dream come true. That second was like, so miracles are real, you know, because I was not dreaming about anybody else. I didn't have like a list of people that I wanted to work with. It was him. And then it was for Kika, and he called me to go to a meeting with him, and we met. It was great, but he told me, but you lied to me about your age. You are too young. And that's what I was doing all the time. But he said, okay, I will write a character for you in another movie. I won't forget about you. And then for the next one, for Lifeless, he called me for the beginning of the movie, which is this character of a prostitute that is giving birth in a bus, and that's how the movie opens. And I did that scene with Pilar Bardem, who later, you know, ended up being my mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. And we spent like 1 or 2 weeks giving birth in a bus. Fortunately, in my life later, I didn't have to give birth in a bus. And
that was a pivotal, it was 8 minutes, but it was a pivotal 8-minute scene. I believe Stephen Frears even saw that scene and kind of cast you then High and Low Country. You've often said that those 8 minutes changed your life. In what way did they do that?
I think it was the beginning of a long story with Pedro, and the character again represented something very different. And you know, it's true that Steven probably called me from a combination of the things that he had seen, but he loved that movie. And I also had a kind of an obsession with Stephen Frears because of Dangerous Liaison, which I saw probably 30 times. I love The Grifters, I love so many of his films, but I had something with Dangerous Liaison that was, like, I think it's a perfect movie from beginning to end.
And then a few years later, a bigger part arrived with Pedro Almodóvar and All About My Mother. You play Sister Rosa, who's like the perfect mixture of generosity and innocence, but she's such a complex character for someone that doesn't actually appear to be complex. it's a film about so many things, a bereaved mother, a neurotic actress, and then your character. What was it like to explore those intricacies of female relationships?
That movie was great. It was great to make that movie. We were working with a lot of incredible, interesting people in Barcelona, and so many women together on that set. You know, Cecilia, Marisa. It was also a shoot that where Pedro was very calm and everything was just very like fluent. Can you say? Like he sometimes makes things seem very easy and they are not, but he creates an incredible atmosphere, and that was the first time I spent like 2 months with him on the set, because the first time was so short. And I always want more, you know, when we finish, it's like never enough. He's so special.
We are skipping a couple of years ahead. For your first BAFTA nomination for leading actress in Pedro Almodóvar's Volver, your third collaboration with him. Let's take a look at a scene where your character Raimonda is in the middle of something rather precarious when her neighbour comes to the door. I think for me that scene embodies so much in the heart of a lot of Almodóvar films. You go from fear, comedy and intrigue in the space of like a minute and a half. How do you go from those intensity of those different emotions?
I think Pedro is the greatest at that, because he will ask you to do it, and sometimes you know from before, but sometimes he will decide the day, like the night before, he will send you 2 pages that are like incredible but so difficult. And sometimes we think he's joking when he says, yeah, then you come and you fall, it's like you laugh, because and then you start crying 2 seconds later, but like, and everything is so precise and so many things happening at the same time, which is what life is and how humans react to things. But he's the best at that. And I agree with you that in that scene, he's taking the character through so many emotions in a matter of 3 minutes, because she is, I mean, you know what she just did with the husband, what she just discovered about the daughter. And in these few minutes with the neighbor, she's plotting what she's going to do with the body, and that she's going to open a restaurant and create a catering for the crew. So all of that, you know, a lot of things happening at the same time, which is what life is.
He's often, I think, said that up until kind of that point, the tradition in Spanish cinema hadn't been of a splendid housewife. They usually were kind of a little bit short and a little bit fat. And so he took kind of the images of a neo-realist housewives from the 1950s. So he looked at Sophia Loren and Anna Magnini and Claudia Cardinal. Were those reference points for you as well when playing her?
I mean, I love all those actresses, and I've seen and really admire all those directors and all those films. And he would maybe tell me to look again at a specific scene for that atmosphere, but he never told me, oh, is this actress in that particular movie? No, he wanted to create his own Raimonda, but we have very similar idols, you know, in the Italian cinema.
It makes kind of your cinematic language and easy to follow with him.
Yeah, because he has seen everything. Yeah. I mean, and he can recommend you maybe things that not a lot of people know, and also with books, you know, it's the same thing. And he watches everything and he reads everything, and he's really a great friend to have.
And then can we just talk a little bit about that Carmen Maura collaboration? Kind of, it was cinematic joy to watch. Was it much fun making it?
Yes, because, you know, I grew up watching them work together, the same as him with Victoria Abril, and then when I was seeing myself there as part of the team, it was surreal for me. And they've done a lot of incredible things together, like Women on the Verge and What Have I Done to Deserve This, and she's a great actress. And I think everyone involved, all the women, we had an amazing time. We were shooting in La Mancha, and you know that's where Pedro is from. So I've never seen him more relaxed on a set. There was something that he went back to his childhood, and we were shooting a lot at night. So he and I would take a walk in the middle of nowhere after lunch, I think almost every day, and he would tell me a lot about his childhood. And I think if I would have to choose moments that I have experienced with him that are special, and I have so many, but those are the most important to me, because that was him talking about his mom and his childhood there, like dreaming about directing and spying on the neighbors and the sisters, and seeing how cinematographic those relationships were, everything they said and everything they didn't. He's a fascinating human being.
Do you think he was already thinking about pain and glory then at that point?
Yeah, I think the figure of his mother has been present in so many movies. Also, many times when Chuslan Preave was in his films, many times there was something that was from Pedro's mother, either a dialogue, because she said incredible things. I think a lot of Pedro's talent and humor came from his mother. And I spent some time with her, and then I got to play her. Even I didn't have to do a work of looking like her or being similar to her in any way. But the essence of her, I needed to have. And I was lucky. I had incredible moments with her. When Pedro received a very important award in Spain, I saw her crying. And I said, "What is it? Are you okay? Are you happy?" She said, "Very happy, but I'm just remembering the fear I had the day that he told me that he was going to quit the Telefonica job because that was his safety. And now look at him, but he was still crying. It was so beautiful for me to experience that with her."
It worked out okay, I think, for him. We're going to come up now to Power Mothers, another powerful project from Pedro Almodóvar. This scene is a pivotal scene in the film when the truth comes out between your character Janice and Anna. That scene is it's so emotionally charged, but at the same time completely stripped back as well. Can you share your experience of that particular scene and the film?
So we were able to shoot more or less in order. So after many weeks of building up to the moment of the confession, the adrenaline was through the roof. I mean, I had really, my heart was at a crazy rhythm during all that week. So what happened is that Pedro had to do the opposite of what normally is done, no? Because both characters are so emotionally charged through the whole time, from the beginning, so many strong things are happening to them, that he would take us every day, especially during that week of the confession, he would take us to a place where we would release everything. We would end up crying in the floor. He would have to go and pick me up and help me to get out of that state. And then, after there was that release, he would shoot with us, and those were the takes that he would use. Because we were so affected by the story, anything with babies involved. In that moment, my character knows that if she wants, she's going to take who is my daughter, because I've been raising her, but I know it's her daughter, and she will have the right to take her. And the threat is so huge that we were not able to do those scenes without breaking down. And then he was interested in the scenes where that energy was not up here in terms of tear and hysteria, and but that was real because we were really in that place. But he made us go through that, and then did a few more takes later, maybe 3 or 4, and those are the ones he used. The same with the moments after, when I'm telling her, "But what are you gonna do?" and she's preparing the things for the baby to take her, and the desperation. I was close to having a nervous breakdown. But again, he came, gave us a hug, helped us, said, "But sorry, but now we have to shoot again from the place where you are." And I understood what he was doing, and Milena did too. And sometimes I would fight it and say, no, but the truth was in the first few takes. Did you see what happened? I said, yes, but all of that is still here in you, but it's a pain that is so strong that I don't want that pain with that intensity. I want that pain with this exhaustion. So it was incredible because he had a purpose, and every single day for all those scenes he did that exercise with us, and I'm very grateful that he did.
In all of your collaborations with him, you've been either pregnant or a mother, but also going through kind of a very challenging position in your life. The kind of 2.5 decades of working with him, obviously, I'm sure, you know, you've changed as an actress and he's changed as a director, but how do you think it's evolved?
Him.
Both of you kind of together and working.
We can look at each other and see what the other one is thinking. I can see him arrive to the set in the morning and I know if he slept, if he's in a good mood, or like everything before he says good morning. But there is always the love, the respect. The thing is that we are managing to enjoy that trust and that love and that friendship, and always have also some boundaries when we are working. When we are on the set, the relationship changes, and it's not, friends working together. Of course, we love each other, but then there is something else. There is the respect for the work, and we're not like normally like joking around on the set in scenes like that. And I think it's tricky, to manage that when it's so many years together. And I think that is the key, is to keep having that respect for each other and for the work that we're doing together, and for everyone involved.
Long may it continue.
Yeah, I hope so.